As Nebraska fans, we've heard all of the storylines this offseason. Can the Huskers finally take that big jump that Matt Rhule's been talking about to win 8, 9, 10 plus games potentially to make the College 12 playoff? Can this wide receiver core live up to expectations? Can the trenches finally bounce back? Can this defense be even better than last year? But with that being said, let's be real. We've heard one storyline more than any other. The biggest X factor for the Huskers this year that's going to decide how many games we actually win. The X factor isn't Matt Rhule. The X factor isn't Dane Holgorsen. It's our quarterback. It's Mr. Dylan Raiola, whether or not he can finally take that big jump to be a top 10 quarterback in America. So in today's video, I'm going to give you a full offseason update of Dylan, what he's been doing in both spring practice, summer workouts, going into fall ball, how he's improved as a player, as a leader, and so much more, and my honest expectations for him this season. Is he going to live up to the hype? Is he going to be a top 10 quarterback, top 15, and everything else you need to know about our quarterback one? So really quick, we have a lot to get into. This is going to be a lengthy discussion talking about Dylan Raiola, what he's been improving, what he needs to continue to work on. Hit that like button if you're fired up. And also, if you're a diehard Nebraska fan and you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Join this family of over 12,000 strong for daily Husker content, talking to your favorite team. No brainer, takes 2 seconds. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. But without further ado, let's get into it. We have a lot to talk about in discussion of Dylan Raiola, our starting quarterback, what he's done all offseason long, whether it's in spring ball, summer ball, going into this year. Is he actually going to take that jump forward? So let's just get things started talking about all the things that Dylan Raiola has improved this year in the offseason, what you're going to see when you actually watch him against Cincinnati, against Michigan, potentially against USC, Iowa as the year progresses. So the first thing is something that doesn't show up on the field, that Dylan Raiola, the first thing that I heard all spring long is that he's a much better leader. He has a much better work ethic than what he did 1 year ago. So when Dylan Raiola got here as a true freshman, he was a little bit standoffish, right? You know, it's hard to be a leader as a true freshman sometimes. You know, you're only 18 years old. There's already some senior leaders. A lot of times seniors, they don't love when freshmen come in there and, you know, act like they're the boss. So Dylan Raiola, he was a leader, but he was a leader by example last year. This year, especially in spring practice, especially in the summer ball, he's using his words, he's using his voice, and he's becoming a captain on his team. He's becoming somebody who could be a single-digit player for Nebraska, right? That's imperative that a quarterback becomes a leader. And they also, the one thing that I heard about Dylan Raiola that I can guarantee is that he has a better connection with his teammates. Last year, that really wasn't the case with Dylan, right? He was good friends with a couple guys on the team. Of course, Jacory, Barney, fellow true freshman. He was always friends with Emmett Johnson, a couple of the running backs. You know, Carter Nelson was somebody. Fedoni was somebody, right? But other than those guys, Dylan Raiola did not have the greatest connection with Jamal Banks. He did not have the greatest connection with Isaiah Neyor. And that was seen on game day. And a lot of times you want these quarterbacks to be best friends with the wide receivers because you want them to study their habits, right? So when the quarterback's scrambling on a 4th down, 3rd down, needs conversion, they know exactly where that wide receiver is going to be without really looking, right? That comes with that trust, that friendship that you build throughout the offseason. Unfortunately, Dylan just didn't really have that connection with Jamal Banks, Isaiah Neyor. Those guys were, 4 or 5 years older than him, right? And Dylan, obviously he's a quarterback 5-star, but he really wasn't best friends with those guys. But that changed this offseason where Dylan Raiola, he treated everything like, business, right? Like, I got to be friends with Dane. I got to hang out with him. I got to hang out with Jacory, Barney more and more. I got to hang out with Nyziah Hunter, Janiran, Bonner, guys like this. I got to have private workouts with those guys down in Texas. So the first thing that Dylan Raiola has very much improved is his work ethic, his leadership. And that's going to show up on game days, right? Because everybody's going to trust their quarterback a lot more. These wide receivers are going to trust that, when they're open, Dylan's going to find them. He's not going to be standoffish. He's not going to, go to maybe his best friend and Jacory Barney like he kind of did last year, right? And I think that's going to be huge for Nebraska. It means that we're going to get a lot more 3rd down conversions, a lot more 4th down conversions, and we're going to be in these close games a lot more than what we were last year. So that's the first thing that I've heard all spring ball is really the thing that you're not really going to see maybe on the field, but it's the thing that really matters the most. It's going to help on these connections and the chemistry. Second thing that Dylan Raiola has definitely improved from everything I heard in spring practice going into fall ball, what we've heard in summer ball, is he's been really working on his touch, his accuracy, because that was honestly, let's just be real, the most disappointing thing about Dylan last year. Like his accuracy, 5-10 yards out was pretty good, right? It was really good. But when he started to throw that ball outside the numbers, or especially 25-30 yards down the field, it was one of the worst percentages in college football, right? It was awful. He could not find multiple players on deep post routes throughout the year, right? Jalyn Lloyd missed him on that post route, in the first drive of the game versus Iowa. And if he made that play, it would have been an easy touchdown, probably would have won that ball game, right? He missed Luke Lindenmeyer on a post route against Illinois on a play action. If, he made that throw and didn't overthrow Luke Lindenmeyer, we would have won that football game. So there were a couple times where, obviously games aren't decided really by one play, but if he didn't make that throw, he probably would have won a couple more games, right? So with that being said, Dylan's accuracy, especially down the field, was really not good last year. But what we've heard so far, especially in spring ball, that's been a point of emphasis. He's been working on that, right? That touch down the field. And honestly, I think that was just, it wasn't even that its accuracy was bad, because it was great back in high school. You watch his film and his deep ball accuracy was probably the best part of his film. I think it was just the nerves, right? Getting adjusted to college football, obviously a big defensive line in your face every single play. The offensive line wasn't very good. Going up against speed defensive backs, right? It's kind of tough to make that adjustment. So I think it's going to be a lot better for Dylan Raiola this year, the accuracy down the field. Now, the only thing that I'm worried about, I'll be very honest with you, is the intermediate slant routes over the middle. Because Dylan Raiola, a lot of times, he has the tendency to, I don't want to say overthrow the receivers on these little, intermediate routes on the field, but he has a tendency to loft it in there, right? He doesn't like to throw bullet passes, right? He doesn't like to just throw it in between two defenders, right? It doesn't really happen. He likes to loft it up in there. And that's not a good move, because a lot of times you'll overthrow footballs because of that, and he'll get intercepted. We saw that multiple times last year. So really, I think his accuracy is going to be a lot better, but that's the only part I'm looking at. Like, that bullet accuracy needs to be a lot improved, but I feel a lot better about his deep ball, which I know a lot of Nebraska fans, they're going to be excited to hear. Third thing that's going to be better, and this is a no-brainer, right? This is one of the reasons why I expect Dylan Raiola to take a big jump, is simply put, I think that reading Big Ten defenses is going to be at a high level this year, like the IQ. Adding Dana Holgorsen to this coaching staff was so imperative, because Dana knows what he's doing in the film room, right? He's seen a couple things or two, in defensive wise, right? Knows how to attack defenses, different coverages, right? So, Marcus Satterfield, I wasn't in those film meetings, right? But, Marcus Satterfield didn't even know what a good statistic was for yards per play. He didn't even, when the media member asked about that, hey, what are you looking for from a yards per play perspective? He said, 3? That would be one of the worst in college football, right? So if Marcus Satterfield didn't even know the answer, I don't know if he really knew what he was doing in the film room. Could be wrong, obviously, but I'm just going to tell you this. Dylan Raiola being in the film room with Marcus Satterfield to going to Dana Holgorsen, night and day, right? And that's going to be a lot better when it comes to reading Big Ten defenses, going through his progression. So it's going to be a lot more of a smarter quarterback. The mobility is something that's been a big conversation this offseason. With him potentially losing weight, looking a lot more skinnier, is he going to be more mobile? And I think if you're expecting him to be a dual threat quarterback, run for first downs, probably not going to happen that often. But the thing that I expect from Dylan is I think it's going to be more aggressive when it comes to getting outside the pocket when needed and extending the play with his arm, not his legs, right? And that's what I'm looking for Dylan, right? When the pocket breaks down, it's good to step up in the pocket, but it's also good to get outside and scramble out. And in that instance, to keep your eyes downfield and find a man, because that's something that was constantly in his film in high school. We didn't see that last year. So I think his mobility is going to be a lot better with him losing some weight. And then last but not least, the big thing I think Dylan's going to prove at is very simply, I think it's going to be a lot better in late downs. It's going to be a lot more of a clutch quarterback. He was not clutch last year. I don't remember a game last year where Dylan Raiola was clutch at all. Like, again, the Colorado game, if anything, he was anti-clutch, because I don't think we scored a single point in the second half. Colorado, they didn't come back, but they could have. Was not clutch against Illinois, was not clutch against Iowa, had that fumble at the very end there. I mean, Wisconsin, you could say it was clutch, but we pretty much blew them out. Same deal with Boston College. So Dylan Raiola just wasn't clutch last year. And it's hard for Trufant to be clutch. The entire team isn't clutch. We haven't won any close games the last decade, right? So, but I think that's going to change this year, of course, with the confidence in this team. I think that's a whole team mentality. So that we're going to win these close games for the first time in a long time. We're going to have a winning mentality. And from a late downs perspective, he's going to be a lot better. Like, we need a crucial third down, crucial fourth down. We're going to get it. And we didn't get that last year. So I think that's going to be huge with Dylan this year from everything we heard in spring ball. He's going to have a lot more confidence to him. He's going to be just overall a more well-rounded quarterback. Now, talking about the expectations, Heisman, there's a lot of lofty expectations, as you'd expect, right? And I don't expect Dylan Raiola to be a Heisman finalist. I think that's been probably thrown around a little bit too much, but I do think when it's all said and done, Dylan will be pretty easily a top 15 quarterback in America, top 10 if everything goes right, probably nothing more than that. But, I think that's just, sets up a really good year for Emmett going into his third year. It's going to be very hyped up. He'll be in the Heisman conversations going into his junior year. But, in my opinion, in order for Nebraska to win the amount of games I think we all want, which is 9 or 10, Dylan needs to be at minimum a top 10 quarterback. Because with Dana Holgorsen's offense, we know how it is. If it's going to depend on the quarterback more than any other year, right? Like if Dylan's having a good game with this kind of an air raid offense, it's not really an air raid, but it's going to be pass first. If Dylan's having a good game, throwing for over 300 yards, not throwing interceptions, being having explosive plays, we're going to win. It's going to be very hard to lose that game. But with that being said, the exact same time, here's the big caveat. If Dylan's struggling, and we saw that multiple times last year where he just did not have any confidence, he didn't get outside the pocket through multiple interceptions. If he's struggling, there is just no way Nebraska wins because there's no other option on the offense, right? We're not going to put in a backup quarterback. We don't have a strong enough running game from a schematic standpoint and from a depth standpoint. We don't have a strong enough run-stopping offensive line either, or run-getting offensive line, I should say. So this year's very important that Dylan Raiola finally takes a big jump because he impacts Nebraska's win total more than any other player, and it's not even close. So I do expect Dillon to be a top 15 quarterback, but it's really going to come down to his accuracy, his confidence level, reading Big Ten defenses, not taking stupid interceptions, having explosive plays down the field. Again, if you have a man 15, 20 yards, 30 yards out on a go route, hit him in the numbers. Do not overthrow him, right? Don't throw a pick and underthrow him, right? And then last but not least, the big freaking thing for Dillon, if we're in a clutch situation, let's just put on our imagination caps. Let's put on our imagination caps, folks. If we're playing Michigan, 28-28, we have the football. 1 minute left to go. We're at our own 40-yard lines. We need about 30 yards to go get a field goal to win. What's Dillon Raiola going to do with that? Okay, because we haven't had a clutch quarterback since Tommy Armstrong. And Tommy wasn't really that clutch, but he had that one play versus Michigan State back in 2015. But, same deal. If we're playing Michigan and we're at the 40-yard line, 1 minute left, we need 30 yards. Can he get it? Because last year he couldn't get it in that situation. I think I would have no confidence in Dillon to get that. No confidence in the entire offense. Can Dillon Raiola have the confidence to go down the field, get 30 yards, get 40 yards, maybe even get a touchdown, extend plays? Because that's what the best quarterbacks can do. They can will their teams to wins. Okay, we haven't had that in a very long time in Nebraska. We haven't had a quarterback who can will their team to a win since Tommy Frazier, not Tommy Armstrong. So we don't even know what that feels like. To have a quarterback who the only reason why you won that game is because the quarterback's playing alone. We have not had that in a long time. Can that change this year? Because if that happens, if Dillon can become a top 10 quarterback, I see no reason Nebraska can't make the college football playoff, to be very honest with you. We will see. So I think it's going to be very much improved. I think top 15 quarterback, top 10, it gets a little sketchy, but I'm telling you, if he does become a top 10 quarterback, if he does improve on all the things that we just talked about and more, again, 10 wins or bust, feel very good about our season. But again, it's imperative that he takes a jump forward, because if Dillon doesn't take a jump forward, if he is the same quarterback we were last year, I'm expecting 6 wins and pretty much 6 or 7. So it's just not going to be a fun year for Nebraska. It's imperative he takes a jump forward. I think it will happen. All right, guys, I absolutely want to hear what you have to say. Let me know your thoughts down below. Also, need to remind you once again, on Saturday, on July 26th, 10 o'clock Central, we'll be posting my second annual Nebraska Deep Dive, going over the entire 2025 roster, my ratings for every player, statistics, great graphics, so many graphics, film, and so much more. So make sure to be here. Set your calendars, because it's a big-time video. All right, guys, go be great, go out, roll. I'll see you in the next one. Hit that like button and subscribe.